coalition of the women rights um, supporters or promoters. Thank you very much. I picked a few areas that I would like to share. Whereas I was positive on many of the issues they analyzed, I had issues with the analysis on property, the liability to be shared by men and women. If we want that the property that is held by one spouse upon coming together, this property is shared and becomes matrimonial property, why not also share the liability that comes with it? Why do we want to leave the liability to the men and not women, or maybe vice versa? And from the analysis I've seen here, it was like transferring the liability on one spouse. Really, personally, I would think if we are coming together and we are happy to enjoy the property that has been maybe acquired by one spouse after we've become, after the union, then let us share both the assets and the liabilities together. Unless you clarify, maybe I got it wrongly, but if that is not the case, I would think we need to improve on that.
Noeline, before you take leave of that point, I invite you to look at clause 51. Clause 51 of the bill. Liability incurred by a spouse before marriage relating property shall after the marriage remain the liability of the spouse who incurred it.
And for me, that is where I let also women also get other men. I am wondering, is that also reality? Won't that create confusion? If in the other one we are trying to look at the actual reality on the ground, probably even these other ones, we need to look at the actual reality, because then we might go against the existing social construction and social norms that will throw chaos in society, which we don't want. So I want to pray that on all these sections, let us also be guided by the social reality, because we live in this society. We are patrilineal. We know how we don't want to reconstruct the society at this time, because we might throw ourselves into chaos that we cannot carry. On the premarital counseling, it is a good thing, but making it a condition, I share your opinion. Making it a condition, there are those who cannot have the opportunity to have it. Would it mean they don't proceed to marry because they have not had the opportunity to be cancelled? So there I share your opinion. Also on the consent, the parental consent, I also share their position, because in this country the Constitution defines who is an adult, and if I am 18 years of age, I must not be conditioned by my parents to whom to marry and whom not to marry. So I share your position. And actually there are many marriages that have subsisted up to today, and where the parents did not give consent. So if it became law, it means such would not take off. Let me end there.
Thank you. But have you paid attention to areas where?
But because of time, I will request that you find the background on page 8. It sort of speaks about why the consistent demand for also the sexual offences bill. We make reference to what was happening in Kenya. We make reference to 1995 Constitution. We make reference to the Domestic Violence Act that was passed by the Parliament, which was also a great effort in addressing some of the issues we had there. We also make reference to the bill of 2016, which did not go far. We make reference to some of the controversial issues that led to the president not assenting to the bill then. And some of the controversies or the main issue that we got communication about was the fact that there's duplication of offenses, and what was referenced was the Penal Code Act. And page 12 and 13 labors to speak about what the Sexual Offences Bill was trying to provide for, what the existing law that we might have thought was being duplicated looks like. So I'll request that if members, you get a minute, you look at those, because we try to sort of make some notes on what is new that we are bringing on board. That can be seen at also page 14 and page 15. Issues of sexual exploitation, issues of sexual harassment that are spoken about in the Employment Act, and etc. I'll quickly get into the analysis of some of the key clauses. You will allow me not to go through each and every one of them, so I'll probably speak about 4 or 5 of them that are major, and then give, I think, some few minutes to the members to sort of make additions to those. The first one that I'd like to make to speak about is on page 18, which speaks about what advanced age means. The bill as it was then when we were doing this compilation of our recommendations spoke about the 2019 version, spoke about 17 years. And we were curious to understand why the version drops it by 20 years, right? We are also mentioning that just like the bill that follows the UN definition of child, it may be safer for us to do the same for what advanced age means, which is 60 years. But also just to emphasize is that I remember in the room then during one of the consultations, members asking, how many Ugandans do you know that are 75 years and above in this country? I don't think we have so many. So let's kindly benchmark what the UN definition is to follow, so that we have sort of some order. The next one is also one of the issues that have been very controversial. It's provided for as an offense in our Penal Code Act, then we continue to also criminalize it here. It's very surprising that when we are talking about duplication of offenses, that many members of parliament are usually insistent we leave this issue of prostitution there, right? Yet it's already in the Penal Code Act. And while the other, what we believe are positive provisions, there's been claims that we are trying to duplicate those. So the use of just the term prostitution is something that we believe that we shouldn't continue with. The World Health Organization, the UN, and a lot of work on human rights and conventions that Uganda is part of, and the spaces that we are part of. The term sex work is what has been preferred because it underscores that contribution. We must be honest with ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, that there are families that are surviving because of sex work in your constituents. And you will also bear me witness that there are many, I do not know if members of parliament do this, many men in this room that have perhaps paid for sex before. You have taken a girl to Dubai before, paid for her to have sex with her. Right? So there's a lot of sex work happening, and I think it's time that we actually change the terms that we use, but also recognition of sex work as work. Whether it's something that has not happened before, whether we say it's the morals of our societies, it's actually surprising that the sex work actually happens in the same societies that you keep referencing. So we are also saying, let's just decriminalize and stop just using the word that is prostitution. The next clause is on page 19, which describes what a sexual act is. And just allow me a minute to read these because the recommendation will make sense thereafter. The sexual act is defined as the penetration of the vagina, mouth, and anus, however slight, of any person by a sexual organ. And then D goes ahead to say the unlawful use of any object or an organ by a person on another person's sexual organ or anus. And we are saying that in 2016, when there were so many discussions around sexual harassment in institutions of higher learning, you must remember students from Makerere, students from, I think it was Ndeje, that gave, what are they called, testimonies about how a lot of men right now are not using the penis as perhaps the Penal Code Act must have thought as then. That people are using tongues, people are using dildos, people are using all these kinds of things. And the Sexual Offences Bill seeks to actually broaden what a sexual act is. And we are therefore recommending that we should revise the meaning of a sexual act to make it more comprehensive and include penetration, however slight, between the penis and the vulva of the penis, and penetration, however slight, between the penetration, however slight. We're also saying that we should include that it should be a contact between the mouth and penis, the mouth and the vulva, or the mouth and the anus. Then 3, we are also proposing that we broaden it to include penetration, however slight, of an anal or genital opening of another by a hand or finger or any object with an intent to abuse, humiliate, harass, degrade, or arouse or gratify the sexual desire of any person. I remember in one of the consultations we had with WOPA, someone from DPP's office was mentioning 3 cases they are stuck with because these particular perpetrators used organs that were not hands, they were machines that they were using. One of them was an underage girl. So to be able to have the right ingredients for the DPP to do their work, I think it's important that we broaden what a sexual organ is. On what rape is, which is clause 2(1) of the Sexual Offences Bill, we are proposing that punishment for rape imposes a maximum punishment of life imprisonment, which leaves the court with a discretion to impose a less sentence based on the aggravating or mitigating factors of each case. However, we are noting that a minimum sentence should also be imposed for rape cases to avoid leniency in sentencing and being biased.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Procedure, Mr. Chairman.
So what I was trying to say is we don't draw our identities from names. Historically, in Ugandan cultures, people were given individualized names. The issue of taking on your father's name is a colonial perspective. I was named after my matrilineal, my maternal grandmother. She was called Rose Nandudu, and I carry that name with pride. Does it take away the fact that I'm from the Bukwaka clan? It does not. So I still draw my father's clan, but I carry my maternal grandmother's name. So we shouldn't conflate my husband having my name with him belonging to my clan. It doesn't work that way, at least in what I know about our histories. We are also not trying to take away parents from marriages. We are not. The Constitution allows us to individualize consent. An adult cannot consent through their parents. Your parent cannot consent for you to have sex, neither can they consent for you to marry. So that you can't infantilize people to that level. Neither does it take away introduction ceremonies. All the ones I've attended, they always ask you, what does that mean? They are seeking the individual consent of the girl who is getting married. So even within those introduction ceremonies, it's not about parents consenting. It's about the person getting married consenting. The rest are just gifts which cannot be returned. So I will not belabor on the issue of contractual marriages. Maybe we can submit a memo. But all I want to say is to reiterate what Honorable Fox has said. As women, we are not asking for too much. Since way back, we have been told, you're too much. You're asking for too much. You're too loud. You're bad-mannered. Look at you. Sit down. Keep quiet. Why are you asking for too much? What we are asking for is what is guaranteed under the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Under Article 31, what we want is equality. And here we are demanding for equality in marriage. Thank you.
Thank you very much.